this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Welcome to this episode of Life Science Success. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I am a digital marketer in life sciences. And today my guest is Daniel Tabb. He's a seasoned life sciences focused insurance executive with 15 years of industry experience. And Daniel leads a life science practice and brings a wealth of knowledge in navigating the complex risk landscape for life science companies. So with that, welcome to the podcast here, Daniel. It's great to have you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Don. Thanks for that intro. That was good. And if I don't know the answer, I'll know how to find it. We'll put it that way.
Very good. No, it's I think it's important, right? And I remember in our first conversation, right? This is something that I was not aware of, that people, oftentimes in life sciences are getting insurance, as they're going through clinical trials and things like that. And so definitely an important discussion for today. But before we really hop into that, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what is it that got you into the insurance industry?
Yeah, I was in my mid-20s, and I guess we were selling SaaS before it was called SaaS, so and it just wasn't for me. It wasn't super inspiring, and I always kind of just had a pull, I guess, to the insurance industry, So, I'll be honest, just kind of up in one day, reached out to a friend that had a State Farm office and went to work for him and kind of learned the basics there. And then from that, I ended up buying an independent agency because I was more interested in the commercial side of the business. And I ran that for 5 years and built it up. And then was fortunate enough for Houchens to reach out to me, and we worked out a merger, and I came to work for them, and that was almost 11 years ago. So, and since that time, have really grown in the commercial space. They obviously had a huge commercial department, and really was able to kind of grow through that, and learning from them. And it was a great move, a great company. And so that's kind of how I ended up here. You ask a lot of people in the insurance business, how'd you get into it? Most of them say, I don't even know. I just ended up here. But it seems like once you're in it, you kind of just stay there, you're either in it for a year and you figure out you really don't like it, or you're in it for 25 years. So it looks like I'm going towards the 25-year mark there. So, but it's a great industry, and, it's a service that we're providing that people need, and when things go bad, that's when we really have to show it, so it is rewarding, and I really enjoy it. So that's kind of how I got here.
Then how did you transition from, more of the commercial side over to life sciences? What led you, this direction?
So, as we've grown as an agency, we're typically in the top 50 agencies in the country every year. We started looking at, we've got to kind of start specializing in certain areas, creating practice groups, and, construction, manufacturing, transportation, those types of things are really big. But I kind of had a pull to the life science industry. And a lot of that came from my wife. She's in the industry, and she's a director of clinical trials. So, a lot of our dinner table discussion was around the industry, and she deals a lot with clinical trial insurance. And, we just had a lot of conversations and things. And as we started to create these practices, I said, hey, we need to start a life science division. And I think from the conversations I was having with people in her network and things like that, there was a space for somebody like us, to kind of come in and bring a different perspective to the industry. We're not Gallagher or Marsh, which are great agencies and large. So we kind of take a little bit different approach and a little more hands-on, I think, for some of the maybe early stage middle market companies that are out there. And so that's kind of where we found our niche in the industry.
Yeah, so I wanted to sort of, maybe dive a little deeper into your career and talk about some of those key transition points as well, because I think some of this, ties for me mentally. I just want to, sort of see if it relates for you as well. So,
Yeah.
in terms of your experiences and key roles that you've had in your career, what were some of those, key moments that you feel like, really prepared you for working with a lot of life science companies as well?
Yeah. You know, as I mentioned, having that at home access really helped. Know a lot of the terminology. Um, just the ins and outs of it. That was a huge factor. It really was, and really gave me kind of a head start of jumping into this. But you know, a life science company is not the same as a Main Street type business or a construction company. There's a lot of different moving parts. There's a lot of coverages that aren't standard that go along with a Main Street business. So I really just kind of I just dove into it and really just started um, researching and looking at those forms and looking at those coverages and studying those, and then from there it started with, let's build out a network. I started reaching out to attorneys that work in the space, consultants that work in the space, and really just kind of built a network of a tool bag, of people I could reach out to and say, hey, how do you all approach this, or what's your stance on this particular situation? So it and obviously having a background in commercial insurance helped. Kind of we were kind of generalists for a long time. I might write a construction company, I might write a transportation company. And that's where it kind of got to where we were like, hey, we've got to start some specialized fields. 'Cause we were kind of all here, there, everywhere, so it was a good move on our part to do that. But I think just that background of just commercial insurance in general, and then just kind of going at it and just trying to learn as much as I could about the industry, and how it operates. And it's the industry itself is very, very open to having those discussions, which has been great. We were talking earlier about the bullpen. I joined that group last year, and that really helped expand some of that as well, and make some new connections.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, for sure, groups like the bullpen, absolutely would, put you in touch with the right people. I think
Yeah.
the other part that, that you touched on as well, I guess there's two things that I would sort of echo back from your history, just to sort of see if these are confirmational or not. But my sort of thought is, as you sort of came through, State Farm, and you had your own insurance agency and you did the merger and things like that. To me, you understand a little bit of the side of the entrepreneurial journey that a lot of these companies are coming through. Like the companies that you're very much, dealing with,
Yeah.
oftentimes in the bullpen, they're smaller companies, and they're trying to grow and things like that. I mean, it's good to have that background. But then the secondary part
Yeah.
that you had said as well was the need to focus. And I feel like this industry is very, without that specificity, they sort of, quickly weed people out, right? And say, hey, look,
Yeah.
this person's a generalist, or this person, doesn't understand our industry enough. And so
Right.
because of that, we can't necessarily, focus on them either.
Right, right. Yeah, and I would 100% agree with both of those. And so I will confirm those for you. you know, and I've, on the side, I've been an entrepreneur on other projects throughout my life too. I've been in the real estate business, and we buy and sell properties and things like that on the side. And so I do understand, especially for the early stage companies, and the thing about it is, these people are really good at what they do. They're really good at creating, uh, uh, a new product or device or whatever it might be. Um, but they're not thinking about the business side. a lot of times. So that's where we really try to come in and help and kind of hold their hand. And with that, something about that tool bag earlier, we can say, hey, reach out to this consultant, reach out to this attorney. They may be able to help with the X, Y, or Z or whatever it might be. So no, I would 100% agree with that. And it's really helped me throughout my entire career, having those experiences and being able to kind of build off of those. So now you're correct on that. So
Yeah, I love the idea of having a resource as well. It's funny because there are certain people in my network where I sort of say, hey, look, these people are resources to me. They certainly have, broad experience, deeper connections, what have you, where, oftentimes whenever I'm struggling, to try and find the right person or whatever to connect somebody with, that they're normally the people that I go to as well. And it's
right.
always good to have those in your life.
You've got to, man. I think, obviously nobody can do everything by themselves,
Mhm.
and even, here internally, we have a great team, myself and all the other people in positions like mine. We couldn't do what we do without the help of our teams. So it's, and then outside of that, we're working with our clients. We will provide, as many resources as possible. But yeah, and in this industry, I think it's really important because there are so many moving parts, and it's become, funding is really tough right now. If we can help, hey, contact this group, maybe they can help you out. So um, it's been a good journey. It made a lot of connections. So we're proud of the resources that we have built.
Very good. And in terms of the companies that you focus in on, so do you mostly deal with drug companies, or do you also work with medical device companies?
Yep.
Yeah, just curious, sort of
Yeah.
company that you.
So life sciences for us is pretty broad. It's a pretty big umbrella that falls under that. But yes, pharmaceutical, device, third party manufacturers fall in that as well. Um, Pretty much anything that has a product that you know um, can be ingested or used or whatever for health reasons almost is pretty much falls under that life science umbrella. So it is pretty broad for us, which helps because there are, you have let's say you have a, startup company. Well, we've got to have somebody manufacture that. So, that falls under our umbrella too. So it's a pretty broad base, but we really focus more on the pharmaceutical medical device is kind of our two big ones, but the third party manufacturers are really good for us too.
Very good. And
Yeah.
so what sets Houchens Insurance Group risk management and insurance solutions for life sciences? What sets you apart?
And kind of we touched on a little bit of this, but I think the specialization is obviously key. Myself and Ben within our agency have kind of taken this and run with it, and it's pretty much all we focus on now. So I think that's a huge part of it. But I really think getting to know your client, and this goes really for any sector, I think, but getting to know your client, exactly what they're doing, what their processes are, um, doing a pretty deep dive, and getting to know that company is key. Um, Policies and procedures, third party agreements, clinical trial agreements, all those things. We want to look at those. We want to help with those, make sure that you have the right language in place. Um, and those types of things are really important. And for some of the early stage companies, they may not even have some of those things in place. They say, well, we haven't done that yet. So that's where we come in and help with those as well. And actually, provide templates and things and work with them to make sure that the language is correct. And that helps mitigate a lot of claims, and get out in front of issues they may have down the road. So that's the biggest key. We want to we want to reduce the risk, transfer the risk, whatever it might be, but, get it away from them as much as possible. But I think that's one of our key things is deep dives, getting to know the client, exactly what they're doing. And with this industry, every product is different. As you got somebody working on maybe a cancer drug or, over here working on maybe diabetes and you got a device for this. And so, there's a lot of different moving parts and each company is different and unique in their own way. So it's really important to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and making sure that those things are in place for them.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the unique risks and challenges? I feel like you've touched on some of these in some of your answers, but also how does what you offer help them
Yeah.
mitigate the risks?
You know, there's a few key coverages we really focus on in this industry. Obviously, one's product liability, clinical trial and product liability is obviously huge. The directors and officers is a really big deal in this industry as well. And then cyber insurance has become obviously, as you know, but we've seen a little downtick in cyber, but um, it ebbs and flows there. So I guess it depends on how much the hackers want to do at any one time. So, um, but those are some kind of the three things we really key in on, especially when we're approaching clients is, hey, what does your directors and officers look like? How much coverage do you have? You know, how is that coverage comparable to companies your size in the market? Do you have enough? Do you have too much? Um, so those are some of the big ones. Clinical trial and product liability, obviously, like I said, is very, very important. Once you get that product on the market, make sure that you have the correct product liability coverage and amounts in place is really big. Um, and as those sales continue to grow, that coverage, needs to grow with that. So being kind of in tune with them and being a true partner and being, you know, involved in the business is really key there.
So, do you normally get involved in like phase one clinical trials, or you? Yeah, just curious. Where this typically happens.
The earlier the better. That way we can kind of, do that with them, but you kind of go through those phases with them. But that doesn't necessarily mean we can't come in, during a phase two or something. So it just kind of depends on the situation. But yeah, we would love to be there from day one, really, and grow with them and kind of hold that hand through the process, but we can come in anywhere, really, and start working with them.
Okay. Um, g- so can you discuss any innovative projects or initiatives that you currently have going on that you're working on in the life sciences sector?
We do have one. I don't want to say too much about it. This is very, very early. But we are working on something for product liability that I think would be really, really big for the industry. It's going to be for more established companies and things like that can kind of take a little bit more risk, but it's just a different product and a different way to approach the market. We're having some discussions right now on that, but like I said, it's a little early stage, so I don't want to say too much. And actually, had a discussion about it yesterday, but I think if we can get it put together, it's gonna be really really nice product for the industry.
Very good.
Yeah.
So, how do you see the overall insurance landscape evolving for life science companies in the near future? And then, what sort of steps do you see your company taking to stay ahead?
Yeah. You know, there's a lot going on in this industry right now. NIH funding, FDA pullbacks, and what's going on there with the government. So that is you know, that's an issue right now. And the early stage companies for sure with the funding side. Um, so, something we want to make sure of is that we're staying in tune with what's going on at these different organizations. And Um, you know, I think that, just communicating with our clients and really just staying in tune with that. But it is a little concerning for some of these companies, and like I said, the early stage and how they're going to progress, with their research. So it's a little tough, but I think it just comes down to being in tune with our clients and really just knowing the next steps that they're going to take. Um, we get we get this a lot. Hey, we started doing this. Well, when did you start doing that? We did last year. Well, you're not covered for that. So that's where that communication is really key, to be in touch with them and know what they're thinking and what they're doing. That really helps us stay ahead. Not necessarily as, um, uh, I would say it's, that's groundbreaking information or anything, but before you start a new project or a new product or whatever it might be, you may want to reach out to your agent and have that discussion first. And but we also have really good relationships with our carriers as well. So, and that's a big thing for us, communicating with our carriers, knowing what's coming down, in the future for them as well. Uh, Companies like to change their mind. Insurance companies like to change their mind a lot and say, "Hey, we're not doing this anymore," or, so we're getting really beat up on cyber right now, so we're going to be taking 20% rate next year. So at that point, we're saying, "Okay, let's move to another carrier," or whatever. So being in tune with the carrier side is really, really important as well. And our team does a great job of that. So we usually know what's coming for the future, whether it be rates or products that they're offering or whatever it might be there. So I think those are all really important pieces.
Yeah, I mean, it's a landscape that I certainly, I mean, there's certain things that I have to have as well, as a business leader, just to make sure that
Right.
I'm protected and my clients are protected, and that, at the end of the day, that, um, you know, we're not putting things at risk, but at the same time, knowing that there's somebody continually looking at that menu saying, "Hey, look, there's, these things are
Right.
going to shift next year," is a good thing too.
Right. And and as you know, as a business owner, that it's not something you're thinking about, right? I mean, you've got 20 other items on your list that you need to get done before you're thinking about, calling up your insurance guy or lady and saying, "Hey, we're doing this," but it is very important. Um, and as you kind of go through your companies evolve, companies change, we were having that discussion earlier, with your company, for example, so it's just important to have that open line of communication. And I think that's a good piece of advice I could give people is to stay in tune with your agent, even though they may be the last person you're thinking about calling when you're going into a new venture, but you may give them a ring. So it
Yeah.
definitely makes life easier.
Well, I mean, I think you covered a lot of really good pieces here as well in terms of, hey, look, before you start down this path, you probably should be
Right.
having that conversation early anyway, because otherwise you might have some things that can't be covered, which would be
Right.
a real detriment as well. I mean, going at risk for a lot of these things is not the way to
It's
proceed either.
it's never fun to find out after the fact. I'll say that. I've been through it too many times. It's not fun to find out after something has gone wrong that it wasn't, properly covered. But yeah, communication's key. Communication is the biggest piece there. So,
Absolutely. So, Daniel, what's the greatest piece of leadership advice you've ever received?
you know, wouldn't say again, this is not groundbreaking or anything, but I think the biggest thing there is treat people the way you would want to be treated. Don't ask people to do things you wouldn't do yourself. I think those are just really, basically the golden rule, you know, and in today's world, I think, with so many experts online, telling you should be doing this, you should be doing that. and everybody's got leadership advice and career advice, online, and everybody's an expert. And I think it really just falls back to, treating people the way you would want to be treated, being a part of the team, and just, you know, the golden rule. I mean, I think it's really basic, but I think sometimes we get away from the basics and try to overthink things and try to do too much. And really, at the end of the day, it's just, being a real person and caring for your people is huge. And we have like I said, I've said it many times, but we have a great team here, and our leadership team is excellent, and can reach out to any one of them at any time, and they're there to help. So I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, it is. It's so basic, but at the same time, so many people sort of blow past this to what other fancy thing can I have to? And the
Right. What's the
reality
shiny
is,
thing right now? Yeah.
the reality is, the interesting thing for me with regards to taking, kind of guru's advice, right, is who is the guru that you're following is,
Right.
something that's interesting as well, because, it could be somebody that, honestly just doesn't know. They just, talk about it a lot. Right.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. They've never actually done it. They've never
right.
actually been through it. They just know how to talk about it. Came up with some cool ideas that maybe sold some books or got some clicks. But I think, I think I always just kind of, that foundation is key. And it's easy to get away from that, and especially like I said, in today's world with all the shiny things online and uh, all the information that's available. It's really, really easy to get away from just your foundation and just being, a real person and listening to your people, taking the feedback, whether good or bad, is really key.
Yeah, absolutely. Daniel, what inspires you?
Personally, say my family, obviously, on a personal level, I have 4 kids, and, making sure that we're just providing the best life for them, um, but professionally, I think getting into this field and uh, this sector, the people we're working with are, I mean, they're making life changing, world saving, products. I mean, let's be real. And um, if we can be a piece of that and, make sure that they are protected if something goes wrong, I found that really, worth getting up in the morning for and doing, so it's pretty cool. And it really interests me. But the work that the people are doing in this industry is life changing. I mean, it really is. So that was another thing that really drew me to this industry as well. Is the work that the people are doing that we're working with. So it's pretty cool.
Very good. What concerns you?
Uh, I mentioned some of this earlier, but some of the things going on at the federal level, hopefully it doesn't disrupt too much of the research that's being done in the industry. Um, not just in the US, but worldwide. We're kind of the standard. So, it is a little concerning. I hope some of these companies that are early stage and that are, coming up with new products and things are able to continue that research, and make it better for all of us. Who knows what can happen tomorrow? You could go to the doctor and you have something they've never heard of. And you need somebody to work on that to get it done, so it's a little concerning, but I think it'll all play out hopefully, and everybody will be able to continue on the path that they've been on. But it's a little concerning, for this industry, I think.
Yeah, I really wonder what the fallout will be, because
Yeah.
I know that there's a tremendous group of innovative people in this industry that have found funding challenges before and have found their way through. However,
Right.
I completely agree with you that, that some of the larger things that normally would support very early stage companies just aren't there right now. And so
Right.
what happens with those, that they just get put on hold until, you make it through what I would call, a very long winter.
Yeah.
Or do they, actually die? Do they get set
Right.
aside and people have to move on with their lives because of the fact that, that it
They
just
just
isn't
can't
an
do it.
option? I certainly
Yeah.
don't have the answer, and I don't have the
I
solution,
don't
or
do
I would be out there offering it every day. But,
yeah. Same here. Same here.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
I look forward to seeing things come through as well.
I do too. And hopefully it all plays out in everybody's favor, so, but we'll see. I mean, like I said, there's been challenges before, and hopefully they can get through it. If I had the money, I would help, but
Absolutely. Four kids at home. I can't blame you.
yeah, yeah.
Right. Last question. What excites you?
Opportunity, even though we just came off this, doom and gloom, stuff there, but the opportunity, for these companies, for us, selfishly, there's a ton of opportunity out there for us to grow, within this sector. There's so many companies out there and so many, good people to work with. And, just really just looking forward to continue to grow our network, and, it excites me. And, yeah, I really enjoy the people in this industry. And, yeah, I enjoy hearing about what they're working on, so just those opportunities for us, for them, for the progress, that hopefully will continue. So that's really what kind of fires me up.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I was having a conversation with somebody the other day who, was talking about, innovating, and it was the same sort of thing. It was like, look, the part that really truly excited them was the innovation part, but the one thing that, we were talking about was that, that we have to balance both the innovation plus the progress forward, right? Because, otherwise we sort of like 80 to 90% create something and then never drag it across the finish
Yeah.
line. So, I mean, it's
Right.
one of those things where it's like, it's great to be creative and think through, like, how do I solve a particular problem? Then the next step, which is where I feel like you really get involved, is like, okay, so as you're making this a reality, keep this in mind because there's
Right. Yeah.
one last piece that, could put you at risk. So yeah.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. It's true, and, but so there are, and unfortunately, there's a lot of great ideas that do die, not just in this industry, but all kinds of industries, so if we can help, get them to that finish line and provide, protection against things, and that's, I think that's worth doing on our end. So, but it's very, very cool industry, and very, like I said, very, very innovative. And, I wish they would all succeed, unfortunately that's not reality, but, but there's a lot of good work going on.
Well, Daniel Tabb, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success podcast. And it was great hearing about Houchens Insurance Group. I hope that, people will reach out early, to you to connect and start those conversations with you early.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on, Don, and, always happy to just be a resource for anybody, just to have a discussion. So, never hesitate to reach out. But again, really appreciate you having me on. It's a great conversation, and, look forward to talking again in the future.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it, and last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.